Hello there, this is Instructor Paul, and in this lecture, we're going to discuss PowerShell conditional statements. As always, what I'm going to do is launch the PowerShell ISE as an administrator, and I'll bring that window up now. And what we're going to do is jump right in. So the first conditional statement we're going to talk about is if, then, and else statements. So we can write an if statement very easily by just typing in if, and then inside of these parentheses, we're going to type in what we want to compare. So we can say if 1 equals 1, that's going to be dash EQ 1. And if you're not aware, the parentheses is a character that you can get when you hold shift and press 9 and 0. You can do the open and closing parentheses. So if 1 is equal to 1, and in an open bracket, we're going to say echo true and a closing bracket. Now, this is a very simple if statement. So we're comparing these two values, and if that is equal to true, then what we're going to do is echo out true. Or we could echo out, I like hot dogs. Anything you want. Doesn't really matter. So what we're going to do now is hit play, and 1 is equal to 1. That means I like hot dogs, so it outputs I like hot dogs. All right. Now, if we were to set this to 1 equals 2, obviously that's a false statement because 1 is not the same as 2. If we run this, it's not going to output hot dogs. So we can append an else statement to this script. So under if, at this closing brace, we can hit space and type in else and do a whole new open and closing brace. And inside of this closing brace, we could say, I dislike hot dogs, and in quotation marks. Oops, and that needs to be echo. Sorry about that. There we go. And if we hit run, it now says, I dislike hot dogs. So if we change this from 2 to 1 and hit play, it's now going to say, I like hot dogs. Now, there's easier ways to write out these if statements. We could also write this out in the command line just like that by saying if 1 is equal to 2, just like we're writing it here. We can write these out on the command line also. So don't feel like you can only do this in the ISE. You can also write if statements directly in the PowerShell command line. All right, so if I press enter, it's not going to echo high, but if I change this to 1, it's going to echo high. Okay. Now, there's an easier way to format this. And I like to just, at the echo or at the open brace, press enter and hit tab. And then at this closing brace, press enter. And I like to put it right here at the beginning. And then at this else, we would do the same thing, tab, indent our code here. And we would backspace till we got to the first character, the first line of that code. This is, in my opinion, an easier way to view this. You could also get rid of these spaces around the else. You could get rid of this space here if you wanted to. If we hit play, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to say, I like hot dogs. We change it to 2. We're going to get the exact same functionality. Just keep in mind, there's different ways that you can output this data. You could also write it like this. It really doesn't matter. It's all personal preference. Some programming and software languages require that you format it in a certain way. Some require semicolons. PowerShell is not one of those languages. Okay, so we can also compare not just integer numbers, but we can also compare string variables or any kind of variable in general, actually. So if we just call this myvar1 and we make that equal to 1, and we create myvar2 and we set that also to be equal to 1, in this if statement, we can say myvar1, and instead of the number 2, we can say myvar2. So we're still essentially comparing 1 to 1. So if myvar1 is equal to myvar2, which in this case are both equal to 1, it's going to be true. It'll say I like hot dogs. So if we echo out this output, it's going to say I like hot dogs. If I change this variable and rerun the script, it's going to say I dislike hot dogs. Okay. Now we can also compare strings. So we could say in quotation marks PowerShell, and for the myvar2 we could say bash. If PowerShell is equal to bash, of course these two strings are different. It's going to say I dislike hot dogs. All right. So if I'll just CLS, because we got a lot of code there. Again, if that was too fast, CLS, that clears your screen. So I typed in that command, and if I run this, now I get I dislike hot dogs. Let's move on and let's look at how do you compare integers. You can use more than just equal to. If we have 1 and 0, for example, so we set my variable 1 to equal to 1 and my variable 2 equal to 0, we can do all kinds of different checks here. So we can do dash, we can say is greater than by GT. We can do less than by using LT. So if we want to check is 1 greater than 0, we can hit run. And it says I like hot dogs because 1 is indeed greater than 0. Now if we change that to less than, it's going to be false, obviously. I dislike hot dogs. So there's all kinds of different ways you can do this. Now, let's talk about what about when you want to choose, like if you're creating a text-based menu, for example. Let's go ahead and get user input. Let's ask the user to input an option, and then let's figure out, if they choose option 1, we'll say you chose option 1. If they choose option 2 or 3, we'll say, you choose option 2 or 3. Okay? So first thing we want to do is create a variable. We'll call this choice. And choice is going to be equal to read-host. Please select an option, and then we'll just say 1 through 3. And now we're going to write an if statement. And this if statement is going to be if choice is equal to 1, we're going to echo and say you chose option 1. So if we run play, it's saying please select an option 1 through 3. If I push 1, it'll say you chose option 1. But if I run option 2, it's not going to do anything because we haven't written that logic. So we could make a new if statement down here and say if it's equal to 2, then you chose option 2. This isn't really a good way to do that. It does get the job done, but really we would like to run this all inside of the if statement. I can just type in else if, in parentheses, I can do choice dash equal to, and then inside of here I can say echo you chose option 2. And I'll hit play. So we can choose 2, and it says you chose option 2. Now, the reason why you want to use else if instead of if is that when it finds a match when inside of an else if type scenario, it will stop doing comparisons immediately. So if we had several of these options here, so if I just copy and paste, if we have all of these different unique else if statements, once it gets to here and it equals true, it won't even bother to check the rest of these. Now, if we have them in all separate if statements, it will go through each one and evaluate them, even if it's already found the actual circumstance. Okay, that's why else if statements are better. So I'm going to go ahead and make another one. Else if choice is equal to 3, then we're just going to say echo you chose option 3, and we'll output this information. And if we do 3, now it says you chose option 3. Now we have a problem because if I type in some random text here like DD, DG, whatever, ASD, whatever, press enter, it doesn't do anything because it didn't match any of these checks here or any of these if statements. So we can kind of write an else statement. We say else, and we don't need to write the parentheses because this is gonna capture everything else. So it's basically saying if choice is not equal to any of these that are above, then we're gonna complete this option. And we'll just say you did not choose a valid option. And that needs to be an echo. Echo. All right, so now if I hit play, if we type in 1, I'll hit F5 again, execute again, or 3, it's going to work just fine. But what if we type in 4 now? It's going to say you did not choose a valid option. Now, if we hit F5 again and we type in this is cool, or just make sure you spell it wrong, this is coal, you did not choose a valid option because it's not matching any of these first statements, so it's going to the else statement. Okay, this is kind of the catch-all of our if statement. Now, there is a much more efficient and better way to write this than writing else if over and over and over again, and that would be through a switch statement. I will demonstrate the switch statement down here so we can just compare the two together. So the switch statement is going to be switch, that's the command, and then inside of the switch is going to be whatever we're going to evaluate. In this case, we can just say read host, please select an option, and then in parentheses 1 through 3. Okay. Now we're going to do an opening brace. So now we're going to tab indent, and we're going to type in the number 1. So what we're basically saying is this is the content that we're going to evaluate. And on this line, we're saying if that content is equal to 1, then we're going to do an opening brace. That's not a parentheses. That's an opening brace. And we're going to say, in quotation marks, you chose option 1. Okay. And we'll go down and we'll say if they enter 2, then we'll say you chose option 2. And we'll close that. And we'll say if they entered 3, you chose option 3. Okay. Now we can add a new line called default. And this is like our else statement. And inside of quotation marks and a brace, we're going to say you did not choose a valid option. Okay. And then we're just going to backspace and we're going to close this switch statement. So this switch statement does the exact same thing that this if statement does. And if I execute this script, first we're going through the if statement. I can choose option 2. And now we're at our switch statement. I can press 2 through 3, whatever it is. And we're going to get you chose option 2. Switch statements have their place and they can be much more efficient than using an if else statement. So that's just one thing that I want you guys to be aware of. If we get rid of all of this and we hit run, we can type in something that's out of the range like 6. It'll say you did not choose a valid, and I spelt valid wrong, but you did not choose a valid option. All right. So that is a quick demonstration of PowerShell conditional statements. Great job getting through this lecture. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.